There are times when the world seems to get darker, when the light seems to grow dim, and we begin to notice a shift in the hearts and actions of those around us. Perhaps someone close to you, someone you've known for years, suddenly starts behaving in a way that seems foreign, distant, or outright harmful. It's at these moments that we must examine what is truly happening, for sometimes there are forces at work behind the scenes, spiritual forces that influence the way people act. You see, we live in a world where the battle between good and evil is ever present. The enemy, the one who seeks to steal, kill, and destroy, is always looking for ways to sow confusion and discord. And sometimes he uses those around us to do his bidding. But how do we know when a person in our life is being influenced by such forces? Let me share with you 7 signs to be aware of. First, you may begin to notice a sudden and dramatic shift in their behavior. It's as though the person you once knew, with all their warmth, kindness, and compassion, has been replaced by someone completely different. They may lash out in anger, bitterness, or hatred, where there was once love and understanding. When a spirit of evil takes hold, it can warp a person's nature, turning them into something they were never meant to be. Second, look for signs of manipulation and control. A person under the influence of dark forces may start to manipulate others, not out of love or concern, but for power. They may seek to control, dominate, and twist situations for their own gain. They use guilt, shame, and fear as tools to keep others in line, trying to make others feel helpless and weak. Third, watch for patterns of deceit. A demon's hand in someone's life often leads them to lie, not just occasionally, but as a way of life. Lies become their armor, their way of hiding their true intentions and keeping others in the dark. These lies are meant to break down trust and sow confusion so that those around them cannot see the truth. Fourth, you may notice a deep sense of emptiness or a lack of peace in their life. When a person is under the influence of evil, they are often deeply unsettled, unable to find contentment or joy in anything. The things that once brought them happiness seem to fade away, leaving only a void, a constant gnawing emptiness that cannot be filled by anything earthly. Fifth, beware of destructive relationships. A demon will often work to isolate a person from their support system, family, friends, and loved ones. They may push others away, creating a divide between the person and the people who care for them most. This isolation is a tactic to ensure they remain under the influence of evil, with no one to guide them back toward the light. 6, look for an overwhelming sense of pride and arrogance. Pride is one of the most insidious signs of a demonic presence. A person under the sway of evil may become consumed by their own sense of self-importance, rejecting humility and treating others with disdain. They may believe they are above reproach, above correction, and above God's will. Finally, you'll notice an increased desire to destroy. When someone is under the influence of darkness, they may begin to actively tear down those around them. They speak words that hurt, they act in ways that damage, and they seek to destroy the lives and reputations of others. This destruction isn't just physical, it's spiritual and emotional, targeting the very heart and soul of those they come in contact with. In moments like these, it is vital for us to remember the power of prayer, the strength found in standing firm against evil, and the need to turn to God for discernment. For even in the darkest of times, when it seems like evil is overwhelming, we know that God's light is greater, and His power can overcome the forces that seek to destroy us. We are called to pray for those who are caught in the grip of darkness, to lift them up, and to trust that the power of God's grace can break the chains that bind them. Let us not be afraid, for greater is He who is in us than he who is in the world. There are moments in life when we notice someone we care about, someone we've known for years, suddenly becoming someone else. It's as if the person we once knew, full of warmth, kindness, and understanding, has been replaced by a stranger. This change doesn't happen gradually, but rather in a way that feels immediate, unsettling, and almost unnatural. It's one of the clearest signs that something deeper, something spiritual may be at work. In these instances, it's important to understand that this shift in behavior isn't just a phase or a temporary mood change. It's a drastic alteration in a person's nature, one that often defies any logical explanation. Where there was once joy, there's now anger. Where there was once compassion, there's now cruelty. The person who once lifted others up now seems to tear them down with harsh words and actions that feel deliberate and cutting. It's as though an invisible hand has taken hold of them and is guiding their every action, leading them into a destructive path. For many, the first sign of this sudden change is an overwhelming surge of anger. The person may begin to lash out over trivial matters, responding to situations with fury and rage that seems disproportionate to the event. The outbursts are harsh and unrelenting, leaving others around them stunned and confused. It's not just ordinary frustration or irritation. It's a bitterness that runs deep, a hatred that seems to emerge out of nowhere. The once calm and patient individual suddenly becomes volatile, and those who are closest to them feel the full brunt of this shift. This anger often extends beyond just a few individuals. It spills over into every area of their life, infecting their relationships, their work, and even their faith. The person who once valued peace and harmony may now be prone to starting arguments, sowing division wherever they go. It can feel like they are actively seeking conflict, looking for reasons to accuse, criticize, and blame others. It's a painful experience for everyone involved, especially for those who are trying to understand why this transformation is happening. Along with the anger comes a loss of empathy. The person who once had a deep understanding of others, who could listen with compassion and offer a shoulder to lean on, now seems to be emotionally distant. They may mock, belittle, or even outright ignore the feelings of those around them. The words that once were kind now come across as cruel or cutting, leaving others feeling abandoned, hurt, or misunderstood. They no longer seem to care about the pain of others, as if a wall has gone up around their heart, blocking out the warmth of human connection. As this behavioral change continues, it often leads to an erosion of their character. The person may begin to act in ways that are completely contrary to the values and beliefs they once held dear. Where they were once generous, they may now become selfish and greedy, putting their own desires above all else. Their integrity may falter as they become willing to lie, cheat, or deceive to get what they want. They may abandon old commitments, forsake responsibilities, or refuse to apologize when they've wronged someone. The shift is so extreme that it's difficult to reconcile the person you once knew with the person they have become. Another striking aspect of this sudden behavioral change is the way the person begins to view the world. The lens through which they see others becomes clouded, distorted by anger and bitterness. Where they once saw the best in people, now they see only faults and weaknesses. They begin to judge others harshly, with a critical eye that is always searching for something to condemn. It's as though they are no longer capable of seeing the good in others, and every encounter becomes an opportunity to point out flaws, real or imagined. This negative outlook is all-consuming, and it pushes people away, leaving the individual isolated in their own anger and frustration. This transformation often brings about a profound sense of confusion for those who love and care for the person. It's difficult to understand how someone can go from being a compassionate friend, spouse, or family member to someone who seems entirely driven by negativity. The change is so sudden and extreme that it can feel like the person you once knew has disappeared. Those who try to help may find themselves met with hostility or indifference, as if the person is no longer willing to receive love, support, or understanding. But this change is not just an emotional or mental shift. It's spiritual. When someone undergoes such a radical transformation, it often signals the presence of something far darker at work. This shift in behavior can be an indication that they are under the influence of forces that seek to destroy. These forces work quietly, subtly, often going unnoticed by the person themselves. They may not even realize that they are being influenced by something beyond their own will, but the effects are clear. The person becomes consumed by anger, bitterness, and hatred, leaving behind the gentle, compassionate individual they once were. For those who witness this change, it's a deeply troubling experience. It's hard to reconcile the person you care about with the one who now seems driven by negativity and rage. But it's important to remember that this behavior isn't necessarily permanent. The power of darkness may seem overwhelming, but it can be broken. Through prayer, compassion, and a willingness to confront the darkness head-on, we can support our loved ones and help them find their way back to the person they once were. When someone begins to manipulate and control those around them, it can be one of the most unsettling experiences in any relationship. Manipulation isn't just about controlling actions or decisions. It's about controlling hearts and minds, influencing people's emotions in such a way that they no longer feel in control of their own thoughts, actions, or beliefs. It's a subtle, often hidden form of power that wears down a person's will, leaving them feeling powerless and confused. At its core, manipulation thrives on deception. It works by creating a narrative that distorts reality, making the manipulated person believe that they are responsible for things that are not their fault, or that they are in the wrong when they've done nothing to deserve it. It's a tactic often used by those under the influence of darker forces, as it confuses and isolates, pulling the victim deeper into a web of lies and control. The manipulator may start with small, seemingly innocent actions, like guilt tripping or making subtle suggestions. But over time, these actions grow bolder and more calculated. One of the first signs of manipulation is a subtle twisting of truth. The manipulator will often use words to make the other person question their own reality, subtly suggesting that they are overreacting, misremembering, or even imagining things. They might say things like, "You're just being sensitive," or "You're the one who's always upset," even when the issue at hand is legitimate. These phrases are intended to sow seeds of doubt, making the victim feel as though their perceptions are unreliable. Over time, this constant undermining of their confidence can leave them feeling unsure of themselves and their own judgments. In more extreme cases, the manipulator will work tirelessly to create an environment where the other person feels utterly dependent on them. This can take many forms, from emotional to financial manipulation, where the victim is made to feel that they are incapable of handling life without the manipulator's help. They may convince the person that they are the only one who truly understands them, that no one else can provide the support or guidance that they can. This false sense of dependency is meant to trap the victim in a cycle of need, making it nearly impossible for them to escape the manipulator's grasp. The manipulator may also use guilt as a powerful tool of control. They will often play on the victim's sense of obligation, making them feel as though they owe them something for past favors or sacrifices. Statements like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me," or "I thought you cared about me, but I guess I was wrong," are meant to induce a deep sense of guilt. These words aren't just complaints. They're designed to make the other person feel that they must comply with the manipulator's wishes to avoid feeling guilty, or even to avoid losing the manipulator's approval. Another common tactic is the use of love and affection as a reward or punishment. The manipulator will use their affection to control the victim's behavior, withholding love or praise when the person does something they don't like, and offering it as a reward when the victim complies with their demands. This creates a cycle of approval seeking, where the victim begins to modify their behavior solely to gain the manipulator's favor. They stop acting according to their own values and needs, and instead focus entirely on maintaining the relationship through the manipulator's approval. Over time, this cycle can leave the victim feeling completely drained, as their sense of self-worth becomes tied to someone else's conditional love. In more insidious cases, the manipulator will work to isolate the victim from their support network, friends, family, and loved ones. They may subtly or overtly plant seeds of distrust, suggesting that others do not have the victim's best interests at heart, or that they are being lied to by others. The manipulator might say things like, "You can't trust them, they only want to control you," or "They don't really understand you like I do." This isolation is intentional, meant to make the victim feel as though they have no one but the manipulator to rely on. With their support system eroded, the victim becomes even more vulnerable to the manipulator's influence, and the grip of control grows tighter. An equally destructive form of manipulation is the use of fear. The manipulator may create an atmosphere of anxiety or uncertainty where the victim feels that something terrible will happen if they don't comply with the manipulator's demands. They might hint at consequences that will unfold if the victim doesn't act in a certain way. Or they might even threaten to withdraw from the relationship entirely, causing the victim to fear abandonment. Fear, in this context, is used as a lever to get the victim to behave in ways that are not aligned with their true desires or values, simply to avoid facing the emotional pain or loss. What makes manipulation particularly harmful is that it doesn't always reveal itself clearly. Often the manipulator will appear as if they are acting out of concern, love, or care, when in reality their actions are motivated by a desire for control. The manipulator will present themselves as the victim, playing on the other person's sympathies and making them feel that they are being unreasonable or cruel. This makes it harder for the victim to see the truth, especially if they are emotionally invested in the relationship. Over time, the victim may start to internalize the manipulator's words and actions, doubting their own worth and becoming conditioned to accept the manipulator's version of reality. They may feel trapped, helpless, and incapable of standing up for themselves. It can be a slow erosion of self-esteem and self-confidence, where the person is no longer sure of who they are or what they believe in. When manipulation and control are at work, it's a sign that something is terribly wrong. It's a spiritual battle, one that seeks to tear down the dignity and worth of the individual. And while the manipulator may be in the grip of something far darker than they realize, it's essential to recognize the signs and take steps to break free from the hold of control. The victim must reclaim their voice, their power, and their identity, for they were never meant to be controlled or manipulated in this way. Deceit and lies are among the most damaging forces in any relationship, capable of breaking trust, sowing confusion, and causing deep emotional wounds that linger long after the lies have been uncovered. When someone is under the influence of darkness, one of the first things they may do is resort to dishonesty, using deceit as a tool to manipulate others and cover up their true intentions. Lies, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, are the building blocks of a larger web of deception that ultimately isolates the individual from truth, from others, and from themselves. At first glance, a lie may seem like a harmless thing, just a small misstatement to cover up a mistake or a white lie meant to avoid confrontation. But lies, even the smallest ones, have a cumulative effect. Each lie creates a small crack in the foundation of trust. And over time, these cracks grow wider, leading to a more profound erosion of the relationship. The more the lies are allowed to continue unchecked, the more they take root, shaping the behavior and character of the person who tells them. It's often difficult to tell where the lies end and the truth begins, and the lines between reality and fiction become blurred. When deceit takes hold, it is never a solitary act. It requires a careful manipulation of facts, emotions, and perceptions. The liar will twist reality to suit their needs, altering details or creating entirely false narratives to mislead others. It's not just about telling a simple falsehood. It's about constructing an entire alternate reality that the liar expects others to believe. They may tell one person one version of the story and another person a completely different version, each designed to benefit themselves or to avoid facing consequences for their actions. The lies are often so intricately woven together that it becomes nearly impossible to separate the truth from the fiction. One of the most dangerous aspects of deceit is that it causes others to question their own perceptions. A person who is constantly lied to may begin to doubt their own instincts, second-guessing what they know to be true. They may wonder if they are imagining things, if they are overreacting, or if they are just too sensitive. The liar feeds on this doubt, using it to further control and manipulate their victim. The more the victim doubts themselves, the easier it becomes for the liar to maintain their hold over them. It's a subtle but powerful form of control, one that erodes a person's sense of reality and leaves them vulnerable to further deception. In many cases, the lies are used to cover up deeper, more serious issues, things that the liar does not want others to discover or confront. These lies might be used to mask guilt, shame, or personal failure, making the person appear more in control or more competent than they truly are. The liar may construct an image of themselves that is entirely different from who they actually are, presenting a facade that hides their true intentions or their darkest secrets. The problem is that over time, the lies become more than just a shield against judgment. They become a way of life. The liar no longer tells lies simply to protect themselves from others. They tell lies because it becomes part of their identity. They begin to believe their own deception, and the truth becomes something that is no longer easily accessible to them. One of the most destructive forms of deceit is the lie that isolates. The liar may plant seeds of distrust between friends, family members, or colleagues, causing people to turn against each other based on false information. They may twist facts to create divisions, making it appear as though someone is plotting against another or speaking ill of them, when in reality, that's not the case at all. This kind of deception is particularly harmful because it tears apart relationships and leaves people feeling confused, betrayed, and alone. It takes years to build trust, but it only takes one lie to shatter it beyond repair. In relationships where deceit is allowed to fester, the sense of betrayal can be profound. The person who has been lied to feels as though they have been living in a world of illusion, where everything they thought was true turns out to be false. Trust is a fragile thing, and once it is broken, it is incredibly difficult to rebuild. The victim of deceit may feel angry, hurt, and confused, unsure of how they were so easily manipulated or misled. The liar, on the other hand, may feel justified in their actions, convinced that the deception was necessary to protect themselves or avoid difficult consequences. But the longer the lies continue, the more they damage not only the relationship, but also the person telling the lies. Lies, no matter how well they are disguised, often carry with them an undercurrent of fear. The liar is constantly afraid that their deception will be uncovered, that someone will discover the truth and expose them for what they are. This fear leads to more lies, more cover-ups, and even more manipulation. It becomes a vicious cycle, one that the liar can't easily escape from. The more they lie, the more entangled they become in their own web of deceit, until they find themselves trapped by their own dishonesty. The longer someone lives in a world of lies, the more disconnected they become from reality. They lose sight of the truth, and eventually they may begin to lose sight of themselves. The lies they tell to others start to take on a life of their own, and they forget what it feels like to live honestly, without the need for deception. This loss of authenticity is one of the most damaging consequences of deceit, for it not only destroys relationships, but also diminishes the person's sense of integrity and self-worth. Ultimately, deceit is a powerful tool used by those who seek to control, manipulate, and isolate others. It is a weapon that destroys trust, creates division, and leaves people in a state of confusion and hurt. And while it may seem effective in the short term, the damage it causes is lasting. The truth, no matter how hard it is to uncover, has a way of coming to light eventually. When it does, the lies that were once so carefully constructed begin to unravel, leaving the liar exposed and their relationships shattered. It is in this moment that the full weight of deceit is revealed, and the destruction it causes is truly understood. There are times in life when everything seems to be in place on the outside. Relationships may seem stable, work may appear to be going well, and the everyday responsibilities are being managed. Yet, within, a person feels a profound emptiness. a deep void that cannot be filled by anything material or external. It's as though there is a constant underlying sense of disconnection from the world, as if something is missing. But no matter how hard they try, they cannot find what it is. This emptiness is not merely a feeling of sadness or loneliness. It is a soul-deep void, one that cannot be easily explained or understood. And along with this emptiness often comes an overwhelming lack of peace, a sense of restlessness that refuses to be quieted, no matter how much they try to distract themselves or seek comfort in external sources. When a person is struggling with such emptiness, the world may seem like a cold, uninviting place. They may feel that nothing can bring true joy, that all the things they once enjoyed or cherished no longer hold any meaning. This lack of peace doesn't just affect their emotions, it impacts their very spirit, making it feel as though they are walking through life in a fog, disconnected from themselves and from the people around them. It's a feeling of being adrift, without anchor, with nothing to hold on to that provides real satisfaction or fulfillment. The things that once brought meaning, family, friendships, faith, passions, seem to fade into the background. And nothing can replace the deep, gnawing feeling that something is wrong. The emptiness may show itself in many forms. It could manifest as a sense of numbness or detachment, as if the individual is going through the motions without truly experiencing life. They may perform tasks or interact with others, but it all feels hollow. There is no joy in their actions, no sense of accomplishment, and no desire to continue on in the same way. They might engage in activities they once loved, but instead of finding joy in them, they find only frustration or indifference. The spark of excitement and passion seems to be missing, replaced by a dull, flat existence that doesn't seem to satisfy any of their deeper needs. For some, this emptiness is filled with a constant longing, a craving for something more, something better, but never quite knowing what that more is. They may try to fill the void with external possessions or experiences, seeking fulfillment in material goods, success, or relationships. Yet every attempt to do so only leaves them feeling more empty. The next promotion, the next purchase, the next social event, all of these things seem like they should provide a sense of satisfaction, but instead they feel fleeting and insufficient. It's as if the emptiness is a bottomless pit that nothing can fill, and no matter how many things they try to accumulate, they always feel as though something essential is missing. Along with this profound emptiness comes a lack of peace, a constant restlessness that seems to haunt them wherever they go. They may struggle with anxiety or an inner turmoil that refuses to settle. It's not just a matter of worry over circumstances. It's a deeper existential unease that makes it difficult to relax, to enjoy the present moment. This restlessness takes many forms. Sometimes it's a racing mind that can't quiet itself, filled with worries about the future or regrets about the past. Other times, it's a sense of agitation, where the person feels like they are always on the edge, waiting for something to happen, but not knowing what that something is. This lack of peace also affects the way a person interacts with others. They may become irritable, quick to anger or frustration, because the inner unrest is spilling out into their relationships. They may withdraw from the people they love, unable to connect with them in a meaningful way, because the turmoil within them leaves them too distracted or exhausted to engage fully. They may feel as though they are not being understood, or that others cannot see the battle they are fighting inside. This isolation only deepens their sense of emptiness, as they feel disconnected not only from themselves, but from those around them as well. The more they try to find peace and fill the void, the more elusive it becomes. They may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms, overworking, drinking, excessive screen time, or even substances, anything that can temporarily numb the pain or distract them from the feelings of emptiness. But these distractions are only temporary solutions. They do not address the root cause of the unease. In fact, they often make it worse, leading to more confusion, more dissatisfaction, and an even deeper sense of spiritual dryness. One of the most troubling aspects of this emptiness is that it can be incredibly difficult for others to recognize or understand. On the surface, the person may appear to be functioning normally, going about their daily tasks, holding down a job, participating in social events, but inside they are battling a deep sense of loneliness and frustration. The lack of peace is invisible, and so others may not realize the depth of the internal struggle. This can lead to feelings of being misunderstood or even rejected, as the person begins to withdraw further, believing that no one could possibly understand the emptiness they are experiencing. For those who are experiencing this emptiness, it can feel like a spiritual battle. The soul longs for something deeper, for peace that transcends circumstances, and for fulfillment that cannot be found in material things. Yet this longing often feels unanswered, as if the very thing they are searching for is just out of reach, or as if they have been abandoned in their search. It is a deep longing for connection to something greater than themselves, to a higher purpose, or to a sense of inner wholeness. But no matter where they look, it seems that peace and fulfillment are always just beyond the horizon. In the end, the emptiness and lack of peace that a person feels are not merely symptoms of a temporary emotional or mental struggle. They are symptoms of a deeper spiritual longing that can only be filled through connection to something greater than the self. The soul, when disconnected from its true source, experiences a gnawing hunger that nothing in the material world can satisfy. And without peace, without the inner calm that comes from this connection, the restlessness and emptiness only grow, leaving the person lost in their search for something they cannot define but desperately need. Destructive behavior is one of the most troubling and harmful patterns that can emerge in an individual's life, especially when they are being influenced by darker forces. It can manifest in many ways, through actions that harm themselves, others, or both, and often seems to spiral out of control once it takes root. At its core, destructive behavior is a means of self-sabotage or an outward expression of inner turmoil, frustration, or pain. It can be the result of unresolved emotional or psychological wounds, or it can stem from an internal battle between good and evil, where a person's better judgment is clouded by forces beyond their understanding. Often, destructive behavior starts as something small or seemingly harmless, an outburst of anger, an impulsive decision, or a bad habit. But over time, it grows in intensity and frequency. What once may have been a temporary reaction to stress or frustration turns into a regular part of a person's life. The individual may start to act in ways that not only hurt others, but also damage their own well-being, whether through unhealthy relationships, substance abuse, reckless decisions, or violent outbursts. The destructive behavior becomes an entrenched part of who they are, and the consequences of their actions begin to pile up. One of the most evident signs of destructive behavior is an inability to maintain healthy relationships. The person caught in the grip of this pattern may push others away, either intentionally or unconsciously. They might engage in manipulative behavior, using others to fulfill their own needs without regard for the emotional toll it takes on those around them. They may lash out in anger, causing hurt and pain to those they care about, or they may withdraw entirely, becoming emotionally unavailable or distant. In both cases, the relationships suffer and trust is eroded. Over time, they may find themselves isolated and disconnected from those they once loved, their behavior acting as a barrier to meaningful connection. Destructive behavior can also lead to self-harm, whether physical, emotional, or psychological. The person may not necessarily be seeking to end their own life, but they engage in activities that slowly chip away at their health, their happiness, and their sense of well-being. This can include substance abuse, eating disorders, self-injury, or any behavior that undermines their own physical or emotional stability. In many cases, the person is trying to numb themselves, to escape from the pain or emptiness they feel inside. Yet the very behaviors they use to cope only serve to deepen the hurt, creating a cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to break. Addiction is a particularly destructive form of behavior that can take hold in someone's life. It doesn't always start with an overt desire to escape or destroy, but rather with an innocent exploration of a substance or behavior. However, as the individual begins to rely on that substance or behavior to feel good, calm down, or relieve stress, they begin to lose control. What was once a choice becomes an obsession. They feel trapped by their addiction, unable to stop even when they see the damage it is causing to themselves and to those around them. The addiction might take the form of alcohol, drugs, gambling, or even more subtle things like work or social media. But in each case, the addictive behavior consumes them, taking over their life, their decisions, and their relationships, and often leading to feelings of shame, guilt, and despair. In some instances, destructive behavior is marked by reckless decision-making. The individual may engage in risky activities without regard for the potential consequences. Driving under the influence, engaging in dangerous physical activities, or making impulsive financial decisions that jeopardize their stability. This behavior often arises from a sense of numbness or apathy, as though the person is no longer concerned with the repercussions of their action. It can also stem from a deep sense of hopelessness, where they may feel as though their life has no meaning, or that they don't deserve anything better. In these cases, the person's behavior becomes an attempt to find relief or excitement, even at the cost of their safety or well-being.